Every one of these held a title. At some point in history, this was the tallest thing human beings had ever built. Ranked from shortest to the structure that held the actual global height record, longer than almost anything else humans have ever constructed, before or since. Height sounds like a simple record to chase, just build up. But every entry on this list solved a different problem to get there. Foundations that don't sink, walls that don't buckle under their own weight, and, in more than one case, materials that were never expected to survive this long in the first place. Some of these you know. A couple of them, almost nobody outside archaeology has heard of. Number 10. 10. Göbekli Tepe, in modern-day Turkey, is barely a giant by height. Its tallest surviving pillars reach only about 18 feet, roughly the height of a two-story house. What earns it a spot on this list isn't size, it's timing. Built around 9,500 BC, these enclosures are the oldest known monumental structures on the planet, predating agriculture, pottery, and permanent villages. For roughly 1,500 years, by some historical estimates, nothing taller existed anywhere on Earth, which technically makes an 18-foot stone circle the first recorded holder of the title this entire list is chasing. Every entry that follows is, in a sense, still trying to beat a group of hunter-gatherers who got there first. The site was actually surveyed once before in the 1960s and dismissed as an unremarkable medieval cemetery. And it wasn't properly recognized for what it was until German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating in 1994. Even now, after 3 decades of work, researchers estimate less than 10% of the total site has actually been uncovered, meaning the current record holder for oldest monumental structure on Earth is still, quite literally, mostly buried. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected at least 15 more similar enclosures nearby, still fully underground, meaning whatever height record this site holds for its era might still be revised upward once excavation eventually reaches them. The T-shaped pillars themselves are widely interpreted as stylized human figures. Several have carved arms bent at the elbow, running down their sides toward hands resting on a carved belt, suggesting these weren't just structural supports, but representations of beings the builders considered important enough to raise on this scale before they had any other reason to build monumentally at all. 9. The Colossi of Memnon, 2 seated stone statues on the west bank of the Nile in Egypt, rise about 60 feet, roughly the height of a 6-story building. Carved around 1350 BC to guard the entrance to a mortuary temple for Pharaoh Amenhotep III, they've stood in the same spot for nearly 3,400 years, despite the temple behind them being almost completely destroyed by flooding, earthquakes, and stone robbing centuries ago. One of the statues developed a strange reputation in antiquity. After an earthquake cracked it in 27 BC, it reportedly began emitting a haunting sound at dawn, drawing Roman tourists, including emperors, who came specifically to hear it sing. Repairs in the 3rd century AD apparently silenced it for good, and modern engineers still debate whether the sound was caused by temperature changes, moving air through the cracked stone, or something else entirely. The statues actually depict Amenhotep III, but Greek and Roman visitors mistakenly associated them with Memnon, a mythological Ethiopian king killed at Troy, and the name stuck permanently. Ancient tourism left its own mark here too. More than 100 inscriptions carved into the statue's legs and bases by Greek and Roman visitors between the 1st and 3rd centuries. AD still survive, making these colossi one of the oldest documented tourist attractions on the planet, complete with ancient graffiti. Even the base blocks are enormous on their own. Each colossus was carved from a single quartzite block estimated at around 720 tons and dragged more than 420 miles from a quarry near modern Cairo, meaning the height on this list only tells part of the story of what it took to put these 2 figures in place at all. Modern acoustic engineers have since proposed that the singing sound came from moisture trapped overnight in the cracked stone, evaporating rapidly as morning sunlight warmed the surface. A natural phenomenon that, coincidentally or not, stopped almost immediately once Roman-era repairs sealed the cracks in the 3rd century. 8. The Lateran obelisk, originally raised in Egypt around 1400 BC and now standing in Rome, reaches about 105 feet, close to the height of a 10-story building, and is the tallest ancient Egyptian obelisk still standing anywhere in the world. Carved from a single piece of red granite, it was quarried, inscribed, and erected in Thebes before Roman Emperor Constantius II had it shipped to Rome in 357 AD. A journey requiring a custom barge built specifically to carry roughly 455 tons of stone down the Nile and across the Mediterranean. It later toppled and lay broken in 3 pieces for over 1,000 years before being rediscovered and re-erected in 1588, meaning this single obelisk has now been deliberately stood upright by 2 entirely different civilizations, more than 3,400 years apart. It was originally commissioned under Pharaoh Thutmose III and completed under Thutmose IV at the Temple of Karnak, then sat there for over 1,700 years before Constantius II decided a Christian Rome needed its own Egyptian monument. It now stands in the Piazza San Giovanni in Laterano, meaning a monument carved to honor Egyptian sun worship has spent nearly 2 millennia as a landmark next to one of the most important churches in the Catholic world. 7. The Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico tops out at roughly 180 feet, close to the height of Niagara Falls. But its height barely hints at the real record it holds. By volume, it's the largest pyramid ever built anywhere on Earth, larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza itself. Its base covers nearly 45 acres, and archaeologists have found it isn't one pyramid at all, but at least 6 pyramids built directly on top of each other over more than 1,000 years. Each new civilization bearing the last one's temple and building higher on top of it. A Spanish colonial church now sits at the summit, meaning the largest pyramid on the planet by volume is topped, almost accidentally, by a 16th century Catholic chapel. Most visitors don't realize is standing on top of a Mesoamerican megastructure at all. For centuries, the pyramid was simply mistaken for a natural hill, overgrown with vegetation, until Spanish conquistadors arrived and local accounts pointed them to what was underneath. Hernán Cortés reportedly ordered a church built directly on the summit, specifically as a deliberate symbolic act, planting Catholic authority literally on top of an indigenous sacred site. A decision whose consequences are still debated by historians studying colonial religious policy in the region today. Tunnels dug into the pyramid by archaeologists in the 20th century total nearly 5 miles combined, more excavated tunnel length than any other pyramid on Earth, and researchers still haven't mapped the entire interior structure of all 6 nested pyramids believed to be stacked inside it. 6. Temple 4 at Tikal, in the Guatemalan rainforest, reaches 64.6 meters, about 212 feet, taller than the Statue of Liberty measured from her feet to the tip of her torch, pedestal not included. Completed around 741 AD to honor a Maya king, it remains the tallest pre-Columbian structure still standing anywhere in the New World, second only to the even taller La Danta at El Mirador. A 70-meter pyramid so remote it requires a 5-day trek through jungle to reach, seen by only a fraction of the visitors who climb Temple 4 every year. Standing on Temple 4's summit today, you look out over a green canopy with the roof combs of 3 other massive temples poking through the treetops. A skyline built entirely from limestone and jungle labor with no metal tools and no wheel. Modern audiences have actually seen Temple 4's silhouette without necessarily knowing it. The temple's treetop-piercing profile was filmed for the establishing shot of the rebel base in the original 1977 Star Wars film, meaning one of the tallest structures in the ancient Maya world quietly became one of the most viewed pieces of ancient architecture in cinema history. The temple's distinctive roof cone, a tall ornamental crest rising above the main structure, added significant extra height without adding usable interior space, suggesting Maya architects were deliberately competing for visual height and skyline dominance, not just religious floor space. 2 raised stone causeways connect Temple 4 to the rest of the city, meaning the tallest structure in the ancient Maya world also functioned as a kind of ceremonial gateway, built to be seen approaching from a distance long before a visitor ever reached its base. Wooden lintels carved from sapodilla wood, a material dense and rot-resistant enough to survive the Central American climate, still span some of the temple's doorways today, nearly 1,300 years after they were carved and set in place. 5. Angkor Wat's central tower in Cambodia rises approximately 65 meters, about 213 feet, essentially tied with Tikal for height, but representing a completely different engineering challenge. This tower sits at the center of the largest religious monument ever constructed by humans, a complex covering more than 400 acres total. The tower's precise alignment allows sunlight to strike its main entrance directly on the spring equinox, meaning 12th century Khmer engineers solved for height and astronomical precision on the same structure at the same time. The entire complex was built on soft, sandy soil in a floodplain, and its foundation engineering has kept it standing through 8 centuries of monsoon seasons that have destroyed far newer buildings nearby. The entire temple complex is surrounded by a moat nearly 623 feet wide, originally built both for drainage and as a symbolic representation of the cosmic ocean in Hindu mythology. Commissioned under King Suryavarman II in the early 12th century as a Hindu temple dedicated to Vishnu, Angkor Wat was gradually converted to Buddhist use in later centuries, meaning this height record has quietly served 2 entirely different religions without ever losing its original structural integrity. Cambodia remains the only country in the world whose national flag depicts a building. A 3-towered silhouette of Angkor Wat has sat at the center of the flag in some form since 1863, meaning this height record isn't just an archaeological site. It's a national symbol millions of people carry in their pocket on currency and see raised on a pole every day. The temple's walls are covered in nearly half a mile of continuous bas-relief carving, depicting Hindu epics and historical battle scenes, making Angkor Wat's decorative surface, laid end to end, longer than the height record of every other entry on this list stacked together. 4. The ziggurat of Dur Kurigalzu in modern Iraq reached approximately 70 meters, about 230 feet, roughly the height of a 23-story building, when it was completed around 1400 BC as the centerpiece of a new Kassite capital city. Built almost entirely from mud brick rather than stone, a material that degrades far faster than limestone or granite. The fact that any part of it still stands after nearly 3,400 years is itself a small engineering miracle, achieved through alternating layers of brick and woven reed matting that let moisture escape instead of trapping it inside the mass. Most Mesopotamian ziggurats built from the same era, and materials have eroded down to low mounds, making Dur Kurigalzu's surviving height genuinely unusual for the region. It was built by King Kurigalzu I as the brand new capital of the Kassite dynasty, a ruling group that controlled Babylon for nearly 4 centuries, but left behind far less written history than their Babylonian predecessors or successors. The city was largely abandoned within a few hundred years of its founding, and the ziggurat sat quietly eroding under desert sand until 20th century excavations confirmed both its original height and its place in this specific succession of ancient record holders. The site also included a massive royal palace and temple complex surrounding the ziggurat, and archaeologists recovered thousands of cuneiform tablets there, some of the only surviving written records documenting daily administrative life under Kassite rule anywhere in Mesopotamia. If any of these 10 make you want the full height comparison chart, drop a comment. That's usually how the next file gets picked. And tell me where in the world you're watching from. Always curious how far this file's traveled. 3. Etemenanke, the Great Ziggurat of Babylon, reached an estimated 91 meters, close to the height of Big Ben's clock tower in London, when it was completed around 601 BC under King Nebuchadnezzar II. Ancient Greek historian Herodotus described visiting a 7-tiered tower at Babylon that matches Etemenanke's description, and most historians now believe this specific structure is the real-world basis for the biblical Tower of Babel. Unlike most entries on this list, Etemenanke no longer exists in any recognizable form. Alexander the Great reportedly ordered it dismantled around 331 BC, intending to rebuild it even larger, but he died before reconstruction began, leaving only a massive square foundation outline that archaeologists rediscovered buried under Iraqi desert sand in the 19th century. The base of the structure measured roughly 91 meters on each side, meaning Etemenanke was, remarkably, almost exactly as wide as it was tall, a nearly perfect cube of proportion translated into a step tower. Herodotus, writing around a century after the ziggurat's peak, described 8 distinct tiers connected by a spiraling external staircase, though modern historians treat his account cautiously, since he was writing from second-hand descriptions rather than first-hand measurement. A partially preserved cuneiform tablet, now held in the British Museum and known as the Esagila tablet, gives ancient Babylonian measurements for the structure's various tiers, and modern historians have used it to cross-check and generally support the 91-meter height estimate independently of the Greek accounts. 2. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, completed around 280 BC on an island off the Egyptian coast, is estimated at somewhere between 100 and 130 meters tall, and its exact height remains genuinely disputed because no complete measurement survives from antiquity, only descriptions, coins, and mosaics. For over 1,500 years, it guided ships into Alexandria's harbor, using a system of mirrors and a fire at the summit, until a series of earthquakes between the 4th and 14th centuries progressively brought it down. Underwater archaeologists have since recovered enormous fallen blocks and statue fragments from the harbor floor beginning in 1994, confirming the structure's massive scale, even though its precise original height still can't be pinned down to the meter the way most other entries on this list can. Ancient accounts describe a massive mirror or polished metal surface at its summit, reportedly capable of reflecting sunlight or fire far enough out to sea to warn ships away from the coastline at a distance of dozens of miles. Later medieval legends went even further, claiming the mirror could detect and burn approaching enemy ships outright, a claim historians treat as folklore rather than fact, though it speaks to just how mythically powerful this lighthouse's engineering had become in the popular imagination centuries after it stopped functioning. In 480 AD, an Arab traveler still described the structure standing largely intact, meaning it likely functioned in some capacity for well over 1,500 years before the last major earthquakes finally brought it down for good in the 14th century. In 1480, Mamluk Sultan Qaitbay had a coastal defensive fort built on the exact same spot, using stone recovered directly from the lighthouse's own collapsed ruins, meaning visitors to Alexandria today can still see pieces of the ancient wonder, repurposed and hiding in plain sight inside a 15th century Islamic fortress that has itself now stood for more than 500 years. 1. The Great Pyramid of Giza, completed around 2560 BC, originally stood 146.6 meters tall, about 481 feet, roughly the height of a 45-story building. And it wasn't just impressive for its era. It was the tallest structure ever built by human beings on the entire planet, for approximately 3,800 years. Nothing surpassed it until Lincoln Cathedral's spire in England reached 160 meters in the year 1311, a gap so large that entire civilizations rose and fell in the time the Great Pyramid held an unbroken world record. Erosion and the loss of its smooth outer casing stones have brought its current height down to about 138.5 meters. But even diminished, it remains the last surviving structure of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. To put the full scope of that record in perspective, the Great Pyramid was already over 1,000 years old by the time Etemenanke, entry number 3 on this list, was even built, and it would remain the tallest thing on Earth for another 2,000 years after that. The pyramid's original capstone, likely covered in gold or electrum to catch the first and last light of each day, was never recovered, and its exact composition remains debated among Egyptologists. In the 1990s and 2000s, robotic cameras sent through narrow internal shafts, originally believed to be ventilation channels, discovered small stone doors deep inside the structure that have never been opened. Meaning even the world's most studied ancient building still has sealed spaces nobody has fully explained. The pyramid's 4 sides are also aligned to true north with an error of only about 1/20th of a degree, a level of surveying precision that modern engineers still find difficult to fully explain given the tools available at the time. Height and accuracy achieved together, on purpose, over 4,500 years ago. 10 structures, from an 18-foot stone circle that once held the record almost by default, to a pyramid that kept the title for 38 centuries straight. Line them up by date instead of height, and something interesting happens. The tallest structure on Earth wasn't a steady climb upward. It was Giza, built around 2560 BC, sitting untouched at the top for so long that Etemenanke, Angkor Wat, and Tikal's Temple 4 were all built, used, and abandoned in the centuries the pyramid was still winning by default. Height alone doesn't explain any of these. Moving that much material that high, without cranes, without steel, without the wheel in most cases, is still the harder half of the story. That's the file for today. Tell me which one of these 10 you'd never heard of before, and if you've stood in front of any of them in person, say so, and where you're watching from right now. Subscribe to Before the Wheel. There's a taller file coming.